Good morning, my dear friends. We are continuing in chapter 8, letter number 8. Hopefully we'll continue it. Pardon my voice. It's a bit not as clear, but hopefully it's clear enough. We are coming to the end of the letter, and we're going to address the original question. The original question was, why do we use the expression Zereya Tzedakais, plant Tzedakais? We shouldn't use expressions like give Tzedaka, the mitzvah of Tzedaka, Oisa Tzedaka. What does it mean, plant Tzedaka? And we started answering that the answer is that we find that Tzedaka has a disproportionately great response. That a regular mitzvah gets a response that you get Elam Haba, you get tremendous. The result is you get to have the ziv, the light of godliness. You not only have Elam Haba level, you have what's called Tshuva Ilah level. Tshuva Ilah level means Tshuva Ilah is the highest level of Tshuva. You tap into Atzmus, the essence of godliness. And the question is, how does such a mitzvah, a regular act of giving a coin to a poor person, put a coin in a charity box, elicit a response that's unbelievable, great, disproportionate? And we answered that's the idea of Zereya Tzedakais. Like anytime you plant something, from what you put into the ground to what you receive is disproportionately greater. You put in a tiny seed, both in quality and in quantity, you can't compare the disproportionate response. In other words, you put in a tiny seed, you can get apples and you get leaves and you get branches and trees, tremendous volume, tremendous variety, and also tremendous flavor. The seed has no taste, has no character, has no dimensions. It's just a bland nothing. And the answer we said was because you're tapping into what's called Keach HaTzemeach, the power of the earth, not the power of the seed. In life, we always have two ways we can operate: our own strengths or God's strengths. As Chassidim, we say we could go on shlichus and work with our own abilities or the Rebbe's abilities. You're a chacham, you work your own abilities. You're a little more a chassid, and you realize, not me, it's the Rebbe, and therefore I could accomplish much, much, much more. Now we're going to explain how that works. That's a good concept. Okay, that's the idea. But how does that work technically? That's what we're going to explain now. So on the bottom of page Kuf Yud Gimel, which would be the equivalent of page 225, I'm going to explain how is it that in the spiritual context and therefore in the physical context, we're going to explain both. How is it possible to achieve this quantum leap, to use a nice fun word?
Where are you going to be? Bottom what?
Bottom of 225.
I know that. Which
or Kuf Yud Gimel. It's Kuf Yud Gimel on top. You see?
I know that. Are you going to go on top?
No, bottom of the page.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Which line do you want to?
Oh, I'm going to start from the V'kacha Mamish, the new paragraph.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, go.
3 lines from the bottom.
So,
okay. To say that today's learning should benefit Chavalei Bashprin Sabluma, to have a complete refuah shlema, and also, of course, to bring extra blessings to Israel, to our soldiers, to our hostages, and to the government of Israel to make the right decisions that are in the best interest of the safety and security of Israel. So it should be.
Amen.
Should be good.
I have several, but I'll tell you at the end.
Okay. This expression, V'kacha Mamish, is a very classic expression of the Alter Rebbe, which means exactly similar. If you think about it, V'kacha and similar, Mamish, exactly. It's like we say, we're going to start at exactly 5 o'clock approximately. The two words don't really go together. And the reason for that is, he says, I'm giving you the best metaphor in the material sense. It's an exact metaphor. It's mamish. Mamish means I can relate to it. But at the same time, you should know it's only a metaphor. As we explained many times, whenever it comes to metaphors in Chassidus, you can't take it beyond that. The famous example we quoted a number of times is when you have a map of a city or state, and you see on the map, there are red roads and blue roads and green roads, one indicating that it's a highway of a county, of a city or a state or federal. It doesn't mean when you get to the highway's red. It doesn't mean you get to the highway's blue or yellow. It just means on this map, we're using this to explain you. So we're saying, yes, it's exactly. They're federal, these are counties, these are state highways, but the highway itself is not a red highway. So the same thing he says, V'kacha Mamish. It's a like this Mamish, meaning you can relate to it, but understand it's all a metaphor. So it's a very interesting expression we find very often by the Alter Rebbe.
Same thing when you learn every time Helek Elokai Mimamal Mamish.
Right. But there the Mamish is added on to emphasize. See, there it doesn't say kacha or similar, just as mamish. Because there we say It's an actual part of God.
Okay.
Right. So there it's actual. Here, the funny part is we're using two opposite expressions. V'kacha, similar. If we say, we had this a few weeks ago in the parsha, when Moshe Rabbeinu says to Pari, kachat says halayla, around midnight. I thought it's exactly midnight. So ka means like approximately. Okay. We explained this idea until now. So the previous paragraph was the analogy. The analogy was that when you plant a seed, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 1,000,000 times more. And by the way, much more than that too. Now we're going to say the kachamamish. We're going now to say how the analog, meaning the analogy was seed. How is it applied to our story? It's tzedaka. Every action of tzedaka in Yisrael that a Jew does, when a Jew takes a coin and gives it to a poor person, when a Jew gives a coin to a charity box, it goes up into the level of halas man. Man, we had in the last section, means maya nukvin, feminine waters. There's an idea in general. Everything in Kabbalah, this is a good idea, a good time to take a moment to examine this idea. Everything in Kabbalah, and therefore Chassidus use the same concept, is that a mayan nukvin means the receiving waters, feminine waters. Mayan tchurin is male waters. What's the difference between male and female in the concept? The giver and the taker. For example, the sun and the moon. The sun is called the male because it has the light. The moon is the female, takes the light and receives it. And then, of course, it reflects it again. But it doesn't have its own light. In other words, everything has a male and a female dimension. And sometimes a person can be both a masculine aspect and a feminine aspect. I'm a receiver and I'm a giver. And there's a beautiful concept brought down regarding shalach manas. It says Purim is coming up in just mamish exactly 30 days from today. Hey, gotta start preparing. So shalach manas is a famous question that's asked that we don't understand. We have 4 mitzvahs on Purim: the mitzvah of hearing the Megillah, the mitzvah of eating a soda, the mitzvah of giving tzedaka, and shalach manas. The first 3 make perfect sense. The mitzvah of eating the Megillah, okay, you heard the story. A soda, that's how we celebrate Oyam Tovim. Tzedaka, beautiful. Shalach manas is not just giving food to the poor; it's giving people randomly, rich guys too. Why is that a mitzvah to go to a guy who has everything and say, "Here, I'm bringing you some cookies and some milk and some chocolates. This is for your shalach manas." What's the idea? And the idea simply is that we have to know shalach manas means every single person can receive. You can't say, "I'm rich, I don't have to receive. I have everything. I have." No, every person can be a receiver, which means every person can learn from someone else. Some how to daven, some how to be a mensch, some how to be kind, some how to be honest, some how to be serious. Every person has what they can learn from someone else. You could be a receiver, but also everybody can be a giver. Even a poor person could give, which means he might say, what's my benefits? I'm not so pious, I'm not so religious, I'm not so holy. You have no idea your qualities, the depth of your character, if you just open up and let yourself teach. In other words, there's a giving and receiving aspect in every person. That's why I have shalach manas, a reminder on Purim to tell you, you should know all the idea of the essential, because Purim is always receiving the Torah again. Essentially, you have to know when it comes to receiving the Torah, every person can learn from someone else, and every person can teach. And this is the idea. So you have the idea. So male always refers to as the giver, and female the receiver. And it happens to be in the relationship in a husband and wife. There's a truth in that in a lot of dimensions, both in creating a child and in general interactions, as we'll see. But the bottom line is that's the idea. Okay. So he says, so the action of a mitzvah that you do goes up like the feminine waters. It's a very interesting idea that says, we had this a while ago in Tanya, that it doesn't start to rain until 2 drops come up from the ocean and encourage the rain to start falling. That's what it says. And the whole discussion, what does it mean physically, biologically? Nature. What does it mean in biology? Whatever the word is. In science. What does it mean? And explain that the water has to come first. And on a very simple level, we know what it means. Every drop of rain that comes down was here once. It evaporated, it went up, and it came back down. So every rain came down. But the idea is that it comes, you listen from below. This is the key to this chapter now. The act of giving tzedakah is the act of eliciting from below. The way it's explained simply in a relationship with a husband and wife, feminine and masculine, is a relationship. Not always does a man show affection, love, warmth. It's not always his nature. But if the woman shows a little warmth and affection and love, he'll reciprocate. In other words, It's the woman's role to elicit a closeness between husband and wife. Just on a relationship level, that she's the one that can create it if it should be naturally. Now, granted, sometimes the man will be more feminine. You have men that are more feminine than women. But the idea is that the woman, the feminine, arouses a response from the masculine. Therefore, when we give tzedaka, that's an act of mayan nukvin, feminine waters, that are going to elicit a response from above, mayan churin, that Hashem is going to give, as we'll talk about in a second. The shayrish Hashem is saying, it goes, go. Whenever you do an act, let's say I want to go and elicit a response from someone to come to shul, to do something. So I have a recipient, the guy I'm going to talk to, I'm going to go and say, you know, it'd be nice if you came to shul. He can respond and come to shul. So where is the destination? It's called Shirish and Shmas and Lamaila. And now we're going to spend the next few minutes focusing on various names for this place, and I'm going to talk about it outside for a few minutes. As we know, the spheres in general, we're familiar with it. The spheres are Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvur, Teferes. That's a Chaydu Seid Malchus. Okay. In general, when we talk about the spheres without saying where we're talking about Natzilus. So if you hear someone say Malchus, Chachma, or Bina, that's talking about Natzilus. In general, that's a good rule to know. If it's not being described where, we're talking about Natzilus. Malchus Natzilus is what we're going to talk about today. Malchus Natzilus is the very bottom. If you want to talk about the process, you have Chachma, Bina, Das, etc. Malchus Natzilus has many names. We're going to focus here on 3 or 4 names that it's called. Malchus Natzilus, the Malchus, it has what's the first name? The first name we're going to call is Knesset Yisrael. Knesset Yisrael, a lot of times Knesset Yisrael means the Jewish. When we say Knesset Yisrael, who do we mean? Knesset means a gathering, like Knesset. Knesset Yisrael means the place where the neshamas of the Yidden are gathered. So what's Knesset Yisrael? If you want to go, where's the pool of souls that come down here when somebody's born? All souls, even though we said at the beginning of Tanya that there are souls of Malchus, that's the souls of Atzilus, souls of Bria, only like the Alter Rebbe had a soul of Atzilus. That means how it comes down here. Everything starts in Atzilus. Everything starts there. But when it comes down, are you a holy man? Everyone's born holy and pure. But the question is, the last 25 years, how much chicken soup did you eat? How many cookies did you eat? How many times did you waste time? Okay, so now we know where you're standing. A holy tzaddik, like the Alter Rebbe, even when they're 50 years old, like it says about Sarah, when she was 100, she was 20, like 7, meaning she never lost that purity. But all souls start in Atzilus. So Malchus Atzilus is the starting point of all souls, all neshamas. That's one reason why it's called Knesset Yisrael. It's also called Knesset Yisrael because it's Knesset Yisrael de Leila. Above there's the Yisrael by Hashem. And that's where all the spheres are. It gathers all the spheres, all the Yisrael of the Eibishter, of above, and it gathers it in one place. So really, Knesset Yisrael, or Malchus Atzilus, is Kulula. It includes all the above. It has inside of it Chachma, Bina, Das. Well, how does that work? Take, for example, a human being, our bodies. We know that all the spheres are all parts of our identity, our intellectual, our cognitive, our emotional. But where does it all go out? Through your mouth. If I want to tell you something intellectual, something emotional, something love, fear, awe, the mouth delivers it. Malchus, as you ever look at the charts, if you look at the charts of Kabbalah, the spheres, Malchus is the mouth. Speech. We said many times, speech. Hashem's speech is Malchus, creation. Hashem created the world of Malchus with speech. So Malchus, that means every single thing I'm going to say ever, if it's going to be of intellect or emotion, have only one channel, my mouth. That means the mouth includes all of these spheres, all the emotions come from the mouth. That's Malchus Atzilus. Malchus Atzilus is the window to the rest of creation. That means every single thing in Atzilus, when it wants to come down into the next world, only one channel, Malchus. And that Malchus becomes now Chachma of Beria, and it goes through again, Malchus the Beria next, and it keeps going down lower and lower. So Malchus is called Knesset Yisrael, that's one name, because all the neshamas are found there, and also it's because it has, it's the gathering of all the spheres. Another name we find for it is Ema Tata, the lower mother.
Oh, wow.
What's the lower mother? Who's the higher mother? My mother. Who's the higher mother? So it says Bina is called, as we know, the higher mother, because from it come all the spheres. You have Chachma and Bina, and from it come all the spheres. So Bina is called the higher mother. Bina is called Ema Ilah. We had it earlier in Tanya. Yeah, as you know, Chachma is called Abela. the higher father, because the father and the mother are the source of all the spheres. As a matter of fact, we said many times, how do you develop an emotion? Think about something. Think about how you're very excited that something good happened yesterday. You can get excited. Think about someone embarrassed. You can get all frustrated. Your blood pressure will go up. Thoughts create emotions. That's how you are. You think about something, you can get scared or happy or excited. That's how it works. That's the whole point of the mitzvah of Avos Hashem. How can you have a love Hashem? Because if you think about something, you can develop feelings. So Bina is Eimei law. Eimei Tata is Malchus. Why is Malchus called Eimei Tata? Because from Malchus comes all existence. What's a mother? A mother means I produce. I produce children, I produce everything, and I provide. So basically, Eimei Tata is Malchus. From Malchus comes every single thing in this world. If you see something in this world, I'll tell you one thing, it came from Malchus. Every chair, every angel, everything comes there. A third name we find for it is Eretz, earth, land. It's called Eretz. Why is it called Eretz? Just like in the world in general, earth is the last of creations. All for Ata, we talked about it last week in the Sikha, that basically earth is the destination. We know you have 4 levels. You have Deim, Tzmei, Chaim, and Daber. The lowest is earth. So when you get down to earth, that's the bottom. The very bottom of creation is Eretz. Within Atzilus, the very bottom is Malchus. But there's another thing to know about Malchus in general. Again, these are important to understand the story here. Malchus has 2 aspects of it. We say Malchus Atzilus, we say, is the source of all creation. But the truth is, all creation, that's what's called Chitzonius of Malchus. Why is it called Chitzonius of Malchus? Because the ultimate wasn't the creation. The ultimate, whenever you have Chitzonius, let's take for an example. I don't want to get off track, but it's good to know these ideas here. If I say Chitzonius Haratzon or Pnimius Haratzon, what's Chitzonius Haratzon? I go to work. Pnimius Haratzon, I should earn money to support my family. So, do I want to go to work? Yes. But what's the reason? Not because I want to manufacture widgets. It's because I want to be able to support my family. So, Chitzonius Haratzon is the exterior of what I'm doing. Pnimius is what the purpose is. And same with everything else. Whenever you have something, there's a Chitzonius and Pnimius. Preparing for a wedding, there's all the stuff and all the details and all. What's the Pnimius? The Chaz and Kala. So the same thing is true with everything else. So you have in Malchus, the Chitzonius of Malchus is creation of all the worlds. Pnimius of Malchus is creation of the Shammais. So when we say that all the Shammais Malchus Atzilus, we mean it comes from Pnimius Malchus Atzilus. That's the part we call Knesset Yisrael. Okay. This covers what we have to talk about. Now let's do it inside. What we're going to basically say is, as you'll see, is that when we pray, when we do a mitzvah, which is also a prayer too, we do a mitzvah, it taps into this place called Malchus Atzilus, where the Neshamas are, where all of the spheres are. Which sphere is there too? Chesed. Now, Chesed is the first of the spheres. When you get to the spheres, you have Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes. Now, so what we're talking now, when you give Tzedaka, you're tapping into this place called Malchus Atzilus, called Eimei Ela, called Knesset Yisrael. What's there? All the spheres, including Chesed. And therefore, when you go and give tzedakah, you're tapping into and waking up Chesed in this world, and that's what comes down as a response. So the disproportionate response we get for giving tzedakah, we're explaining the scientific understanding of how, just like on the ground, you plant a seed, it awakens the earth. When you plant a mitzvah of tzedakah, it awakens the Knesset Yisrael in that world, where all this, we said Knesset Yisrael on deeper level, doesn't mean the Neshamas. It means all the spheres are gathered there. The sphere of Chesed is there, that's elicited. Why is Chesed chosen and that one comes down? This is for 2 reasons. Number one, Chesed is the first. The first always includes everything else. But more importantly is, depending on what seed you plant is what you get. Tzedakah is a seed of Chesed. So you're going to elicit as Chesed. You plant an apple seed, you get an apple tree. You plant a pear, you're getting a pear tree. You plant a tzedakah seed, you're going to get a chesed response. Okay, now we understand how it works scientifically. Let's see it inside. All right. Nikra b'shem Knesset Yisrael. This place is called Knesset Yisrael. Also, the Ema Tata. It's also called Ema Tata, the lower mother, as we explained, Lashon Hazer, in Lashon Hazer. Oh, I forgot to say this one. Ushchina. It's also called Shechina b'Lashon Gemara. This same place is called Shechina in the Gemara. Why is it called Shechina? Because that's the part of, in general life, in the world, we have Hashem, how he comes down in the world, and Hashem, how he remains above the world. We call it Seviv and Mamali. We call it Makif and Pnimi. All different ways to explain it. That's what we say before Baruch Shem every day. You want to bring Kucha B'richu, that's a level of God above. To unite it one with Shechina, Hashem's presence in the world. So Shechina represents that lowest level that Hashem is coming down into the world. Malchus Atzilus, that's where Hashem engages the world. So Shechina is another name, it's called that in Gemara. That has within it all the different middays of Hashem. And it's one with them betachlis, in an absolute way. And the essence of Malchus Atzilus, or Knesset Yisrael, or Ema Elah, or Shechina, all the names that go for the same thing, depending on what we're talking about, is one thing is there, all the spheres are tight and one with that. You push a button there, you're hitting the spheres. Now, V'reishisan, and what's the primary midah that's there? Midas HaChesed is the midah of Chesed. So now that you know that when you push this button, it's like a soda machine. You're going to put it in a corner, and the biggest button you have to push is Chesed, is a Diet Coke. Most of the machines. The big one's Diet Coke, then you have small, regular Coke, whatever. So he says the automatic one that's inside there is Chesed. And through this halah of Maya Nukvin, the feminine word, meaning through giving tzedakah to a poor man, Chesed Hashem Mamish, you wake up a Mamish, the Chesed of Hashem itself. That means the essence of Chesed. Shu Gili Elias Baruch, the absolute level of God's light. Later, the Lahir Lamatal and Hashem Yisrael B'chinas Gili Rav Otzim. To go and infuse and fill our life. That means you give a coin in tzedakah, it's going to be a whole different day. And what in particular? B'shas tefillah. See, a regular person could have, a tzaddik could feel this all day long. I once heard, I don't know where this is from, I heard this, I tried to find the source. Somebody asked one of the rabbeim, what's it like for them? What's it like for a rebbe? I forget the exact story or about his father, what it's like. He said, you know how you feel a regular day when you daven Shachris or Mincha? Now you feel on Shabbos. Now you feel on Yom Kippur. Imagine Yom Kippur when you're saying Ne'ilah, the last hour of Yom Kippur. Imagine when you're saying Shema Yisrael, the last line of Yom Kippur. That's how Rebbe feels 24/7. 24/7, he's not zoned. In other words, so a tzaddik could feel that result of tzedakah anytime. But a regular person, give a tzedakah before davening, and your davening will be different. So here is the answer to the entire chapter. What is the result of Zerei Tzedakah before? And Rabbi Eliezer would give, according to the pushing before davens. You want to live with davening, you want to be alive with davening, you want to have a real davening. Experience it by tapping into that button. Push the magic button of Chesed. That's by giving a coin to a poor man. It wakes up the Chesed, the Chesed law, the levels, and it comes down to you the most purest, strongest level of godliness. It's unbelievable.
Now I understand why you have to put more in the pushka before doing the hal.
Yeah, same thing. Same thing. It makes the result that's unbelievable. Salderov has a question now. 1 second. That's fantastic. Levels of godliness that are amazing come down. But how? I'm flesh and blood. I'm human. You can't bring down superpowered godliness in a giant way into a person of flesh and blood. I enjoy eating pizza. I enjoy eating cookies. I'm going to have a relationship with this. See, he answers, you have to understand how God does it. God has something cool about him. He says like this, even though God is so unbelievably great, and when it says Gedula, it's referring in particular to Chesed. No, when it says Gedula is Chesed. It's his greatness, and greatness here means Chesed. There's no way to get to the end of it. To the point that all of us don't begin to exist before God's greatness. Nevertheless, where you find God's greatness, Hashem is great. Great people don't have to sit with the big people to be, you take a little kid in school. I remember this was a punishment. I think today it's considered cruel and unusual. You can't do it anymore. When I was in first grade, the worst punishment you could do to a kid was if he was misbehaving, you send him down to kindergarten for a day. It was an embarrassing thing. Because the little people are embarrassed to be on little people. People go to a party, high school kids come out to they don't want to hang around like the loser people or the non-cool people because I'll be a nobody. Somebody doesn't mind going with the regulars. Why? Only a small person thinks that hanging around small people makes me smaller. Only a small person thinking if I hang around them, I'm not going to be special. I have to sit at the head of the table. A great person says wherever I'm sitting is the head of the table. Wherever I sit, that's the front. Meaning, I don't need to be around big people to be big. Therefore, great people, you want to know who they are. See where they're humble. In other words, if they can be humbled, if they could sit with small people, that means they're great. But Makim Sha'ata Mitzvah Good Lust, when you find Hashem's greatness, Shamata Mitzvah in Vestose means when you find greatness, you find humility, which means Hashem's nature as a greatness is to hang around small people. In other words, Hashem hangs around us. Like the mashal we always say, like water that flows from a high place. Water is natural chesed. Water is the metaphor of chesed. Why? Water cannot stay up. If it could find a way to trickle down, it's going to trickle down. It could be a small crack, a hole, doesn't matter. Water will find a way to flow down unless you really block it well. In other words, greatness, water, chesed, in its essence, likes to go down and find a lower. And therefore, even though it's true, we don't have any way to relate to God, but God has a way to relate to us. He comes down, he'll sit in our classroom, he's not going to feel uncomfortable. The President of the United States, when he's, we used to have great presidents back in the day, but the President of the United States does not mind coming to a kindergarten and reading a book to them. Why? Because I don't become smaller. On the contrary, I'm bringing these kids up to a higher place. The president came. This is what it says. He shines in darkness. Light to the straight ones, meaning light to the straight people. He's merciful and means gracious. V'rachem and merciful. Tzaddik, meaning God is kind. He's giving. He's understanding. He's compassionate. God's nature is to give. He doesn't have to sit and say, 1 second, what do I have to do with these small people? Hello, I'm fine with that. I think it should be Tzedakos. When a person has this level of kindness, it listens by Hashem, such a behavior. This causes Hashem to shine down into his neshama, which is living is in a body of flesh and blood. He's standing in dark, which means we spoke about this a number of times. When neshama to come down into a body, it's a very, very big jump, and it's almost like you have to squish it and stuff it in. It doesn't want to go there. It's not a size issue. It's like I don't want to go there. Why? I don't want to sit in this smelly, physical material existence. But Hashem comes down, and the vart is what's the idea of a body? The body, by definition, is materialistic. The body all day thinks and needs, unless it's a tzaddik, thinks, needs, and wants material pursuits. I need a nap, I need a food, I need a coffee, I need a drink, and this is the good thoughts. Not even getting into selfish stuff or material stuff or vengeful or deceitful or dishonest. This is the good things. So the body is called in Kabbalah mishcha dechivya. It's like the skin of a snake. Skin of a snake has a lot of metaphors, and the fact that it disconnects also is not real. A snake could shed its skin. But the idea of this, it's a snake. It's the lowest of the low. The snake has always been considered the bottom. And this experience of coming in Hashem in your life by giving tzedakah, that's called the Yeshua. And this connects with the mind. We just learned Basi Lagani about Eskafi on his hapka. When a person transforms darkness to light, how do you do that? I have a quarter that I can use for self, for me, all about my own personal growth. I'm going to take this quarter and give it to someone else. I just transformed darkness, which means selfish behavior, into light, giving tzedakah, kindness. You do that, that elicits an unbelievable response from above. And that's what it means, that when a person transforms darkness, selfishness, anytime you give up your nature, your tendency, your impulse for something which is right, something which is good, something which is godly, that is transforming chashuchah and hara, or occasionally it's iskafia. When I don't do anything, I hold back from saying something I shouldn't, that's iskafia. But instead, I go and use it for good. I was about to go buy myself a delicious cheese Danish, and I say, I see a poor guy. Oh man, I want that Danish, but I'll give it to him. You just took your own selfish needs and tivus, and you gave it to someone else. That's what we're talking about here. So he says, "Zeu matzmiach Yeshua." You plant Yeshua means she Yeshua zutze meches mizrias tzedakah. This salvation grows from the planting of the tzedakah. Shezayim be'eretz halyena, that you plant in the above mentioned eretz halyena. We said before, malchus datzilus. Besides being called Emelah Shechina Knas Yisrael, is also called eretz. That's Hashem's land. Eretz Chayfetz, it's the land of Chayfetz, which is cute because today's Hayom Yom is taken from a letter written to a man named Chayfetz in 1939. So it's interesting. Eretz Chayfetz, he Shechina, it's called a Shechina, it's called Knesset Yisrael, Why it has all these names? It becomes to the lowest levels to give them life. Why is it called Eretz? Because what's the definition of Eretz? Eretz at the bottom. So Hashem takes the land and puts into the earth the highest power, the power of growth, the greatest gift in the world. We know when a husband or wife create a child, it's impossible. How do you create a child? Hashem joins the company. You have the father, the mother, and Hashem gives it the power to grow, the power to live. Same thing is, how do you grow from putting something in the ground? Usually, put it in the ground, you bury it. It's done. It's over. We buried it. So you put it in the ground, flourishes. Why? Because in the ground is the power of growth. The greatest resource that we have is in the ground that Hashem put, just like He put into the physical earth. Same thing He did into Malchus Atzilus. Like it says, your Malchus, Hashem's Malchus, Malchus Atzilus, has the Malchus of all the worlds. Okay, this is where the point ends. Now the Alter Rebbe goes back to the fundraising part of the letter. Till now he was saying the whole message. Now we understand why he says Zarei Tzedakah. We have an unbelievable opportunity to receive not just spiritual blessings, not just physical blessings, but also tshuva low-level blessings that are unbelievable. Now the Alter Rebbe is going to take it one step further. This is true in all tzedakah, but especially when you give seeds, meaning tzedakah, not just for anywhere, but to Eretz Yisrael. At that time, I was referring to Rabbi Moshe Rapoport, who had traveled to Eretz Yisrael with his community, and that was sending him money for the community there. So he says, when you give money to the Yid in Eretz Yisrael, hamakuvenes, kenegda mamish, that is opposite, lined up perfectly to this higher source of Malchus Atzilus. Then, shazriya nikletes, the planting immediately grabs. Sometimes you plant a seed, nothing grows. Sometimes people try and have a child, nothing comes out of it. That's because not every time does the seed work. But sometimes you get lucky and the seed nikletes. Shazriya nikletes, take it from miyad. When you give tzedakah to Yisrael, the result and the effect, meaning it actually catches on, is much, much more immediate. Nothing gets in the way and can block as a divider. Between the land of life, meaning your tzedakah to this great resource. Why? Because Eretz Yisrael is the gateway to heaven. We know when we daven, the Rebbe speaks about it in one of the famous Yitzhak Sichos at length, that when we daven, all prayers go through Eretz Yisrael, and through Eretz Yisrael, particularly through the Kaisel, through the Harbayas. And not so when you give tzedakah out to Eretz Yisrael, sometimes you see results, sometimes you don't. In other words, when you give tzedakah out to Eretz Yisrael, you have an immediate and guaranteed result every single time. So this is the end of this letter, letter number 8, which is phenomenal to read it today because tonight is Tesva Shvat, Chamisha Shvat. The 15th of Shvat is exactly the idea of Zuriya, planting, all about Eretz Yisrael's fruit, and all these things that we talk about. And the Rebbe explains at length the uniqueness of these 5 fruit, each one its nature, what it represents, what the 5 minimum are. In other words, it's not just by chance that we finish this chapter going into the Shvat, to go and have a meaningful engagement with Eretz Yisrael, which is not just a physical place, but it's also another famous teaching that Sema Tzedek, when somebody wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael, he said, Mach Eretz Yisrael, make here Eretz Yisrael. What does that mean? Falafel, shawarma. It means that a spiritual experience of revealed godliness. That's found Eretz Yisrael, you should make here. In other words, we have to make the experience to be real,